Hello, my name is Dominic Stahl. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Stateset, and today we're going to be talking about how we're revolutionizing commerce operations. Uh, Stateset has been focused on the direct consumer market and worked with a number of customers, 3PLs, logistics providers on building the future of commerce operations. And so today I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of our learnings, what we've built, and what's coming next on top of Stateset and Hasura. So one of our key learnings that we found over the last couple of years is that global commerce and businesses building the direct consumer space, there's been a major shift away from single entities to network partnerships. And what this means is you often have a number of different companies involved in running the day-to-day operations of any e-commerce business. So this could be a developer agency that's building the front end web store. This could be a developer agency working on an iOS app. It could be a manufacturer who needs to have access to certain parts of data. It could be the 3PLs, warehouses, but typically all of these different companies are on different systems. They have their own databases, they have different apps. There's ways that we have to try and essentially communicate between these various systems. And so this leads to a number of different problems and risk. One of them being, complexity. As you add more participants to the network, there's ultimately going to be more systems to integrate that allows for or that requires more time. And if the companies internally don't have the resources, then essentially it can lead to delays or even higher costs. Overall maintenance and support of the system. So if you're building a system of systems, how do you actually make it more efficient than just running on one? And so again, more personnel and more support, which can increase costs. And then lastly, around flexibility and risk of failure. If you're running a particular system and it's not completely integrated and it's not just one company running it, there's a number of kind of difficulties that could come with it. And if something goes down, it likely will affect other systems. So with Stateset, what we found is using things like GraphQL queries, GraphQL subscriptions, mutations, we can provide a single endpoint across various databases, various systems of record for all of the different participants in the network. This can be developer agencies, like we talked about, the actual manufacturer, 3PL that, let's say, needs to process a return or a warranty, and in also the merchant themselves, the teams internally at the merchant. And this ultimately became Stateset, what we're calling the Autonomous Commerce OS. And so we have a number of products that we've built on top of Hasura. And I would say it's kind of the core engine that is basically allowing real-time data to go to our mobile applications that we're building for customers, web clients, whether it's like a portal for a partner or a 3PL. And then we're also essentially hosting Hasura and other databases on our cloud platform we call Stateset Cloud. So we'll be talking a little bit about these different use cases today. This is just another view, kind of a little bit under the hood of what we're actually powering and why Hasura is kind of a critical component of it. So we have, I would say, a modern, Next.js based and Tailwind based front end. We have a global config layer across all of our different customers and partners. And then, serverless infrastructure, where Hasura allows us to basically query the state changes that are happening across different 3PLs and customers, or we're actually running subscriptions if we need to get like real-time messaging data into a particular application. And then there's this other component, which is very important, which is the events. So if there's state change in the system, we have events that are going out, let's say like the condition of a product was updated, and that triggers an event in a separate system, like a refund or something along those lines. So we're basically using Hasura as a way to get data into the front end, as well as a way to trigger different APIs that are essentially powering the different businesses that we work with. And then I would say this last layer that we really are pretty excited about is this serverless API and serverless Postgres layer on top of our infrastructure, on top of Stateset Cloud. So as I mentioned, this is another view of the stack. The core personas that we work with are customer service teams, operations teams, and warehouse teams. they are leveraging our core system of engagement. So logging in, managing tickets, returns, warranties, orders, running the day-to-day operations. But then you also have like a 3PL, a warehouse operator who's actually receiving something like a product, like a return or a warranty. And then Hasura sits in the middle, as it essentially allows us to communicate between our database and also these different front ends, whether it's the mobile app, the 3PL's interface, or our customer's interface. And then the other, I would say, key part to this is Stripe integrations, remote data joins integrations, which with Hasura, we're able to bring in and resolve other GraphQL endpoints into this same platform. So instead of doing one-off integrations, Hasura makes it very easy for us to kind of resolve data that lives in a separate system. And in addition to that, it's allowing us to power, a number of different applications, whether it's for subscription billing, whether it's for processing refunds or processing anything that lives in a separate system. It just makes it a much easier way to reason about how to integrate the systems. I'll pause here for a sec. I think if there's any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll be online today, so please go for it and send a chat. I'll be happy to answer them. So I think one thing I wanted to talk about again is kind of the personas. Like these are the three different personas I would say on a daily basis using the system. So you have merchants, 3PL warehouses, and then design and developer agencies. And ultimately, for each one of these different personas, we're going to have better insights into operations, logistics, and finances. You'll have that synchronization aspect across the different parties because we're able to do things like remote data joins. We're also able to synchronize the various systems that they're using. And then lastly, we're able to orchestrate event-driven workflows. So if there's an event in Hasura that says, this return record was updated or this order record was updated, how does that trigger, various APIs that are then, going across the different parties that we see here. And then lastly, this will improve time to action for a number of different personas, such as operators, agents, and other team members that are using our applications. We talked a little bit about some of our APIs. I think this graphic here on the bottom right is a really good way to reason about architecture. So we have Hasura as the GraphQL engine on top of Postgres. And then as events are being sent out, we can kind of see that, they'll have a workflow like generate a label, email it to the customer, and then create a record back in Postgres with like the RMA number or the tracking number from the label. Or if there's a subscription workflow, this customer requested that their subscription was changed. That event from Stripe can then trigger an update in Hasura, and then we can have that written back to Postgres that, hey, this subscription in Stripe was canceled. So all of these kind of event-driven workflows that are kind of built based upon the three-factor app that Hasura talks about and is built is a really good way and a really good architecture for us to build modern applications. Another app in our kind of operating system, which is also built on the same model, is an app called Response. And we're using the same pattern of anytime a message comes into Postgres, we can then use that message, send it to an endpoint, let's say like a chat workflow endpoint that gets a response back from GPT or Chat GPT's API. And then that can be sent back to Postgres, and the subscription can bring that data back to the client. So this same model is used for all the apps that we're essentially building on our platform and for our customers. Lastly, where does all this reside? So one of the things that we've ran into or thought about was how do we actually give the ability for our customers to update serverless APIs themselves, update their own Hasura instances, or deploy their own services to our platform, like a Stripe server that's going to be used for a remote data join. So we had this as an internal developer platform for a number of years, and we then migrated this to our own kind of new platform that we're releasing called Stateset Cloud, which allows you to do CI/CD and deployments, also secrets management, integration with Git source control, and then also you'll have the kind of same event-driven logging that you would see with other hosting platforms. And so we're very excited about this specifically because it doubles down kind of on the same pattern, this three-factor app pattern of having GraphQL and subscriptions based on GraphQL, event-driven APIs, and serverless Postgres. And so we're really excited about being able to offer this product and continue to build on the same pattern that we've been exploring the last couple of years with Stateset. And so I think lastly, as I kind of described this database microservice kind of section here is where the cloud platform would reside. The microservice and serverless APIs is here, and then this is another example of like how we're actually subscribing to these state changes that are happening in Hasura. I think the thing that we've started to understand is that this section, can be self-service, deploying databases, upgrading databases, deploying and migrating or deploying and updating your own serverless APIs. All of these sort of things we would actually do internally. We're now offering as a service so that customers and their developer agencies have more control over it. So this is something else we're very excited about. So it really becomes kind of that serverless backend for businesses when they can build and continue to kind of adopt this pattern internally. So what's next? We're really excited about coming up with the RESTified API endpoints. The RESTified API endpoints powered by Hasura, which will allow us to build things like the SDKs on top of that. So if we have any GraphQL queries or mutations that we want to save, we can basically save them, put a REST endpoint in front of them, and then start to build client SDKs that can communicate directly with those REST endpoints. That also kind of would entail we would need Open API spec to actually create the REST calls as well, or create the SDK. But these three couple of things will help us kind of push forward as far as enabling developers and our customers. And then more remote data joins, adding more and additional things like Stripe's GraphQL server to our core platform. And then lastly, continuing to build different scripts, which kind of are leveraging Hasura's metadata APIs, which allow us to inject tables whenever a new instance is set up, or also do tracking automatically, or even create new RESTified API endpoints whenever there is a net new client that wants to use our platform. So we're really excited about it. We're getting a ton of value out of Hasura. We've built a really core component of our platform on top of Hasura, and so we're excited to see whatever is next for the company, and we're excited to see other presentations here at HasuraCon. So thank you so much for your time. I'll be around for questions here. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.